Girl, you do not need to be here. You don't got no money. You're fat, but some people don't have limbs. Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Crystal, and today I have a solo travel Q&A for you guys. So if you don't know, I have traveled to Vegas, Cancun, Hawaii, and part of Europe by myself. And so today I'm going to be sharing some of my tips and tricks as well as answering all the questions that you all sent to me. If this is your first video and you end up enjoying it, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up. Now, let's get into it, y'all. Hey, if y'all know me, y'all know I always have a drink to the side of me. Today, I am doing a nice little iced tea kombucha because, baby, I talk a mile a minute and I start getting tired. It forces me to take breaks. So the first question is, when you're solo traveling, what things do you do to make sure that you feel safe but also confident enough to explore and try new things by yourself? So this is a great question to start with, y'all, because my first solo trip was to Hawaii, and y'all, I was terrified to go. I went to Hawaii for like a week, probably like 8 or 9 days, and I was so afraid. I was so nervous. But the first thing I would suggest is to pick somewhere that you are going to be as comfortable as possible. So for me, I knew that I did not want to go somewhere international on my first trip. I wanted to be somewhere where I knew that my passport was going to be good, that I was going to be comfortable, and that I was going to feel very secure. I also always suggest, for me personally, when it comes to solo travel, I do not stay in Airbnbs. And this is a very hot take. But I think because I watch a lot of like true crime, I once saw a story about a girl. She rented an apartment or something, and she never came back, and they just like put her stuff in a closet. So nobody knew she was missing. Now, I don't think that would necessarily happen, but she was missing for like a week before her family kind of realized like, oh shoot. So for me, I like to stay at a hotel because they know where you're checking in, they know where you're checking out. They got pictures of your ID. That is my one main thing. Another thing is making sure that you really research the area that you're going to be staying in. So, for example, when I went to Lisbon, this most recent trip, I was by myself, and I made sure that I researched which areas were very heavy in tourists, because unfortunately, typically those places are going to have a little bit more of a police presence and a little bit more monitoring. Now, that doesn't save you from pickpockets and things like that. But as far as just feeling secure in the fact that okay, I'm not going to be walking down a dark alley and get snatched, that is what helped. And as far as the confidence, I believe that once you do your first solo trip and you survive it, you are going to build that confidence. Once you make it through that first plane ride by yourself, you check into your hotel or Airbnb by yourself, you're going to be like, okay, I can do this. And that is the real tea. That is going to be a confidence boost. And then every time after that, you're just going to know that you can do it. I mentioned this in a previous video, but as far as another thing that I always do is when I'm traveling somewhere that is overseas, if they have the option to do a free walking tour, some of my favorite walking tour companies are Green Frog and Sandman's. I'm going to link them and then also put them on the screen. I will take a walking tour the first day that I get there. So the reason that I do that is because, first of all, it's going to familiarize you with the area that you're staying in. It's going to take you on a good long walk so you can get familiar, you can know. Also, the Sandman tour guides are very, very informative about stuff oh, this is an area, to be safe in, whoopsie-woo. And that has always been very beneficial. And that's also how on solo trips I have met people. If you watch the Amsterdam vlog, I met a girl named Anna who was lovely, and I met her on a free walking tour. People on vacation, they want to talk, they want to mingle. So that is a way to kind of build that confidence, because more than confidence or safety is really boredom when you solo travel. People don't talk about that enough. Eventually, after day 3, you can possibly get bored if you don't plan well enough, and if you don't kind of make sure that you have good activities to look forward to. I hope that answered your question. Now, the next question is, how far ahead did you plan your trip? She took her first international trip last year. This year, she wants to go further. So for this trip to Europe, I did have to plan it pretty far in advance, y'all, but that's because I was going to a music festival. So because I was going to Afro Nation, I knew that I was going to Afro Nation probably 9 months ago. But then once I realized I was going to Afro Nation, I was already going to have to buy a ticket. I was like, okay, let me see where else I can go. Let me see how much time I can get off and stuff. So then I planned to go to Amsterdam, to go to Lisbon and to go to Paris, probably like 5 months or 6 months before the trip. For me, that was enough time, but y'all do keep in mind that I do work a traditional 9 to 5. I also have a side hustle, and you have to definitely think about your finances, right? Like, I think that's the most important thing. So it's whatever you're comfortable with when it comes to like being able to budget out the money that you need to budget. Because Afro Nation was such a big part of my trip, I had already bought my ticket, which was expensive. I think it was like $400. And then I had already found my accommodations because I had a friend who had girls that she had met last year, and so we all stayed together. So like that bulk of it was planned, and then everything else was solo, so I could kind of just like take my own time planning and booking it. But realistically, I say to do a Europe trip, you need to plan at least like 9 months ahead, and that is because you want to know kind of in your mind where you're going and be able to start looking at flights and hotels. Also, if you do work a 9 to 5, I strongly suggest traveling not like straight off season, but traveling as the season's coming kind of towards the end. Because for me, with Afro Nation, it's in the middle of summer. Everything was more expensive, period, because it's in June and July. So I paid a lot more than what I've typically paid when I went to Europe because I was like in the strong on season. Okay, this person said, Brian said, I basically want to know everything, LOL, because I want to do the same thing, but all around Australia. Did you use a travel agency for hotels and flights? Did you need a visa? What was the most difficult thing you encountered? Okay, I also want to go to Australia so freaking bad, man. Like, Australia is on my list. It's just that flight is crazy. It's like, for sure I would have to do 2 weeks for Australia, but maybe next year. I don't know. Did I use a travel agency for hotels and flights? I've never used a travel agent before, y'all. And I think part of it is like cultural. I know that like people in the UK and Europe, they tend to be very like travel agent heavy. For some reason, I feel like America, because we have all the websites like Booking, Travelocity, TripAdvisor, you really don't necessarily have to use a travel agent. I definitely think there can be benefits when you're new to traveling, but I think like for me, I just always research, use Google, and kind of plan and curate my own trips. So for my hotels, I used booking.com, and I love booking.com. If you see this, sponsor me, baby, because they allow you to book now and pay later, and we love that. And I love being able to go ahead and reserve the room, know how much I need to budget for the room, but then not have to stress about, that. As far as flights, I cannot recommend enough Google Flights, y'all. If you have not used Google Flights, you're missing out. Because let me tell y'all something. Google Flights, basically, and I'm going to put a screenshot. I might do a little like video right now. I don't know. We'll see. Google Flights allows for you to kind of see the going rate of flights based off your date and everything so that you can monitor it. You can also set up alerts, and Google will email you and tell you like, hey, your flight is on sale. This is the lowest it's been in 5 weeks. This is the lowest it's been in 3 months. It lets you know the trends and just can help you like get your best deal on a ticket. Did I need a visa? So no, you did not need a visa to travel to Europe. However, I believe in 2024 they are going to require a visa, but it's only $8 supposedly is what I've been reading. And so that will be a change. We will have to get an $8 visa if you're coming from America to travel to Europe next year, if it goes through. Okay, and then what was the most difficult thing I encountered? Okay, this trip. What was the most difficult thing? Okay, so I will say going from Faro to Lisbon, our train got canceled and because they were on strike, and then we had to ride a bus. That was a lot. And then also additionally, just like the logistics of traveling, y'all, I overpacked so much this trip. And that's because I haven't been to Europe in probably like 3 years because it was like before the pandemic. So I had just forgot that like when they say pack light to Europe, y'all, that is not a suggestion. It is a requirement because if you're going from like city to city or country to country, you are going to have to lug around a big ass suitcase. Some places don't have elevators. So you're having to take it on stairs. You're having to go up and down. You're having to put it on a train, put it on a bus. It ends up being a lot. And that was probably like the hardest part. Like I just really overpacked. And I ended up suffering because of it. Another person, what was your planning process? How far in advance did you begin researching and booking travel and hotel accommodations? So like I said, I kind of answered this question already, my planning process, the first thing I typically do is like start looking at hotels. That's because I'm hella indecisive. So I start looking at hotels first. Then I'll start looking for flights. Personally, and this is like a hot take, but like to me, I was more so like I just got to get to Europe. And it depends on like what part, right? But like flying into London is always going to be cheaper from Texas. Flying into London, you're going to be able to get a straight flight. It's going to be cheaper. Flying into like Paris, you're going to be able to get a straight flight. Flying into Amsterdam, you're going to be able to get a straight flight. So those are the places like I was looking to at least start my trip, if that makes sense. Because being in Europe, you're really able to travel between countries so easily due to them having such a good transportation system as far as having trains, buses, etc. So if you're looking to do like an more affordable trip, kind of keep your mind open to the fact that like, okay, I can't take a bus from Faro to Lisbon. I can't take a train for like $30 or 40 from Amsterdam to Paris. You don't necessarily have to start your trip and end your trip in the same spot. And that's a way to kind of save money. Again, I started planning this trip like probably within like a year ago, like 9 months to a year ago. I started planning it, but I really, really solidified and locked everything down like probably 8 months ago. But that is because, or maybe like 6 months ago. I don't know, y'all. I didn't plan super far in advance, but also, y'all, that's just because I've done this a good amount of times at this point. I feel confident like it's going to work out, which isn't the best mindset. I just say I would start to research it, try to do a year in advance, especially because to me, the main thing about travel that people don't want to keep it real about, baby, is the finances. If the money's endless, you could book this trip a week in advance, but that's not reality. We work jobs, we have bills to pay, we have real life. So for me, the main thing is like making sure that I have the financial standing that I need to be able to enjoy the trip. You feel me? So like that is what should dictate your planning, because for me, what I like to do is every month put some money aside for my trip, if that makes sense. So I'm starting to save the money, so I have it saved up so that I'm not like strapped at the end. There is nothing worse, y'all, than going on vacation and you don't have no spending money. I feel like everybody has been there. Like when you're fresh out of college, spring breaks, that used to be us real bad. I probably had 2 trips where it's like, girl, you do not need to be here. You don't got no money. Can't afford nothing. You're just here vibing. And once you experience that like once or twice, you never want to experience that again. And so to make sure that I just don't ever have to go through that again, I am big on like, okay, how much do I need to save every month to have everything covered and to be comfortable? That's what dictates the plan. Well, she said, hey, Crystal, hey, how many days do you recommend for exploring Amsterdam, just the city proper? Also, were you happy with the location of your hotel? Would you have picked the same one if you had to do it again? What was the weather like? Do I need a jacket? Thanks, I'm going next month. First of all, y'all, I loved Amsterdam so much. I was only there for like 2 days. I definitely think Amsterdam is like a 3-day to 4-day trip. I think if you stay 3 to 4 days, you're going to see it all, baby. You're going to see it all. That's like the max I would do there to see Amsterdam proper. My hotel, so I picked a really like, to me, I picked like a nicer hotel. Are you done? Are you done? Can we proceed? Please. So I did pick a hotel that like had all this like fancy stuff, like a spa, a pool. Da, da, da. I loved the hotel, but it was pretty far out. Luckily, it was on a bus route. Overall, I loved the hotel, but I think like if you really want to see more, you should probably stay closer into like the actual like city center. So that's the only thing. But overall, it was a nice hotel. It was also kind of pricey, to be honest. But because we went during on season, everything was pricey. So I keep saying we, but really it was me. Because I went during on season, everything was pricier. But overall, I did really like Hotel Jakarta. Would I stay there again? Absolutely. I just know that like you're going to have to get on a bus to go everywhere, basically. You feel me? You have to get on a bus to get closer to the city. That's just the fact. But it's not super far. It's just like across a bridge. Maybe like a 5-minute ride, and then you're like dropped off, plopped in the middle of everything. So yes, I was happy with the hotel. I would stay there again. What was the weather like? The weather was good. It was warm, but it was still like had a nice breeze. You asked, would you bring a jacket? I would definitely bring a little throw-on jacket or even a cardigan. That's just a rule of thumb no matter where you go, girl, because obviously Amsterdam is on the water too. So like when the temperature drops, sometimes the water can bring in like a breeze. And so that is why I would bring a jacket, just because in the evening, sometimes I would be like, ooh, I'm a little chilly. I can use a little jacket. But during the day, the weather was amazing. Also, make sure you go to this burger place called Panda Meat. This person said, love what you shared from the trip. Thank you so much. I know you're not plus size, but were there any considerations made up front for weight on where you stayed in mode of transportation? I'm looking forward to Paris soon, but traveling while fat in a foreign country has me constantly pushing back this dream. Okay, girl, first of all, let me tell you something. You're fat, but some people don't have limbs. You feel me? And they're still traveling. Like, literally, I was in the airport, and not to be harsh, but it's just the tea. Like, I was in the airport, and there was a man, and I remember, like, I was low-key complaining because it was such a far walk to get from, like, my terminal to the other terminal I needed to be at. And in my head, like, I had a moment where I was like, oh, because I'm, again, plus size. I'm in this bitch sweating. I got my bag. I'm sweating. I'm heeing. I'm hawing. I'm like, and in my head, I was like giving myself such a little pity party. Then I see this man, and he's in a wheelchair, y'all. He's having to roll himself like with his hands. Nobody's pushing him. It's not an electric wheelchair. He's having to like move the wheels himself. So that takes a lot of upper body strength. And he's doing it. He was going to the same terminal I was going to from the same terminal I started at. So it's like, if he's doing that, I can easily walk through this airport, walk through this street. You feel what I'm saying? Like, you have to just realize that, like, yeah, it is gonna take like probably having to take more breaks, having to pause when you're walking, having to say like, okay, I just need to sit for a second. That's okay though. Like, don't delay a dream just because you don't have the body that you want to have right now. Don't delay, because we don't know. Your tomorrow is not promised, God forbid. But just being real, you have to like embrace the moment. So that's my first thing about that, girl. Because that was a big wake up for a call for me. I actually texted my homegirl and was like, girl, what am I complaining about? Were there any considerations? Yes. One consideration is, first of all, everywhere I stayed needed to have AC. That's number one. Everywhere needs to have AC as far as like where I laid my head at. Another thing is like I made sure to pick hotels that had an elevator because I did not want to have to go up the stairs. And modes of transportation, not really. Now, I can't speak to like if you do need to have like 2 seats instead of 1 to feel more comfortable. I can't speak to that. I do know that Southwest Airlines does like offer a program for that, but I don't really know enough to like be informed, so I can't answer that. Well, I will say, as far as transportation, for the most part, everything is fine being plus size. Like, in Paris, they have the subway system, they have Ubers, so you're going to be comfortable. You can walk if you want to walk, but you definitely don't have to. One thing I would say for the walking girl is to make sure that you have like either biker shorts or Spanx. Under every outfit y'all saw me wearing, I had on like just like biker shorts for the chub rub, because you do a lot of walking and I tend to feel most comfortable in like dresses or skirts. So I just had those on, because if not, my legs would have been burning. Another thing I would say, and this is like not trying to be like, oh, but before I went on this trip, the month before, my friend and I, we started walking 3 miles every morning, because I knew that like I wanted to be able to comfortably walk and not be like super held back. And that's just all about stamina. That's not even about your size. That's about like having the endurance and the stamina. And typically we just don't walk a lot in the States, like or at least where I'm from. I live in Texas, baby. We hop in the car. So I started walking for an hour every morning for the month before I went. And that helped so much. Like, y'all, I cannot describe the way it helped me just have the endurance to keep going, like on these walking tours and stuff. It made it definitely more bearable in Lisbon. Even though I was out of breath and he and a Han, I know it would have been so much worse if I hadn't been walking in preparation for this trip. So that is one tip I would. As far as like getting around, you can definitely Uber everywhere. You can do the subway. You can walk slowly at your own pace. I think you'll be fine. I think you'll have a great time. The main thing, girls, just don't delay. Don't delay just because of your body. We can't do that. We got to embrace this life as it is. Did I take any safety precautions at the hotel alone? Did you do any research into the safety of the areas you stayed in? So as far as safety precautions in the hotel, I really don't do much. I love those TikToks where the girl has like a doorstop, a hatch lock, a thing. I love them. That's just not me. First of all, I didn't have room in my luggage for all that, okay? Y'all already know I was 20 pounds overweight. So I didn't have room. Right, nothing safety related. What I do make sure I do is that, like, when I go to the hotel, they'll assume, they'll look at you and be like, oh, it's only you. I'm only going to bring you one key. And the main thing is, like, I always ask for 2 keys. Even if I'm checking in by myself, I'm like, oh, I need 2 keys. Because I just make, that way they just assume somebody's with me. But that's really it. I don't really do anything beyond that. I also personally typically don't get my room cleaned every day because I don't want for housekeeping to come in and see that there's only one suitcase. But that's just a personal preference. I just prefer to like be like, okay, just bring me towels or whatever. But everybody's different. That's the 2 things I do. This person asked, what methods of payments did I use throughout Europe? If I used cash, okay. The first question is, what methods of payments did I use throughout Europe? I used cash, I used Apple Pay, and then I used a credit card so that I could get the points. If I used cash, did I obtain the foreign currency before I left the States? Yes. So y'all, this is a good tip. If you have a traditional bank, I guess all banks really, your bank will exchange your money for you in advance and mail it to you. So for example, the bank I bank with, I just did a little request online to exchange my money from cash to euros, and so they took an amount out of my bank account. I took 300 USD, so they took 300 USD and they put that into euros, and then they overnighted it to me, so I got it within like the next day or 2, and it was super convenient. What resources did you use to decide on accommodation, transportation, restaurants, and activities? So I've went over accommodations. Well, let me go over what I use to decide everything, y'all. I use TripAdvisor. Okay, TripAdvisor is my go-to for hotels because TripAdvisor is going to have like photos that guests have taken. And actually, now that I'm saying that, I need to upload my own photos. But they have tons of reviews, tons of things that guests have taken. They also have like activities. They have everything. So you can read reviews on all these different activities. So I love TripAdvisor. Another thing, y'all, is social media. TikTok came in clutch. The way TikTok, like, you can just do the hashtag like Paris travel, Paris restaurants, Paris activities, and then TikTok brings up so many different things. So that's how, for example, Pink Mama, I found it on TikTok. Also, Airbnb experiences. I talked about this a little bit, but Airbnb has some great tourist things to do and like attractions that you would not find on like your traditional websites. So like, for example, when I found the marijuana baking class, that was only on Airbnb, y'all. It wasn't on anything else. Did I use any equipment to capture solo footage on yourself? Yes, y'all. So I use a Canon G7X. I'm going to link everything down below. So my vlog camera is a Canon G7X. I also bought my Canon M50, but that was a lot bulkier than I realized. So I just ended up leaving that at the hotel the whole time. As far as my tripod, I have a super tiny compact tripod. I can't show y'all right now because I'm actually using it. But y'all, it literally goes to like the size of this. But then it's tall enough. It's like 4 feet tall, I think, or 5 feet tall. So it's a great solo tripod. And then the last thing is that I also used a GoPro. So those are my things that I like. Really, all you need is a handheld tripod and then a good like vlogging camera. Those are my suggestions. That's how I captured. And last thing is, like, when I was on the solo walking tours, great time to ask people for photos, because what happens is that you're there with people that are walking, or like, y'all are all on tour. You ask them for a photo, they're like, sure, because they know you're alone. So that's how I get like photos of myself and video too. I'll be like, can you take a photo? Can you take video, please? The vlog needs to see where I am. What are typically your goals when traveling solo? So for me, when I'm traveling solo, my main goals are just to really embrace the experience. Also, I really, really, really like to do things that are a little bit unique. I try my best to find something that is a little bit off of the beaten path. It doesn't always work out because sometimes I'm not planning far enough in advance to be able to. So for example, there was a African diaspora in Lisbon tour that I really wanted to go on, hosted by this guy that really is super knowledgeable about like the Black population in Lisbon. But because I waited kind of late to book stuff, I could not go on that. So for me, it's just finding things that are unique, and then also just really opening myself up to like not being afraid to talk to people, not being afraid to like go out to dinner by myself. I think that solo travel really allows for you to build a confidence and peace within being alone, and realizing that you can just still have as much fun and like put yourself out there. That's really my main goal, is to just like not overthinking, not allow for my anxiety or my overthinking to get in the way of things. How much time per day would you say you had to spend on work? So it was a little bit of a unique situation, y'all, because I was gone for 2 weeks, and I've mentioned this. I'm the only one who does my job. So I only had to spend probably like 3 days, probably like 3 to 4 hours working. And that's not bad. It was like not terrible at all. And I personally would rather do that than have a boss who's like, well, you can't go because your gas is due. Because then I'm having to look for a new job. Okay? Because then I'm having to quit because, baby, I'm going. Because I'm very blessed and my boss is super understanding. What tools did I use to overcome the language barrier? Ooh, this is a good question. I'm going to be totally honest. In France, I realized that I was not doing a good job of trying to overcome it. I actually was like, you know what? I want to learn another language. But pretty much everywhere I went, they did speak English for the most part. However, when I went to go mail home a package, the guy did not speak English and I did not speak French. So we both like really had to kind of work together. I ended up using Google Translate because Google Translate has a thing where you can take photos of a like menu or of a message. You can take photos of it and then you can translate it into English, which is super cool. So I would definitely download Google Translate. And in general, I say just try. Like in France, I would be like bonjour or oui. I would say oui, which I realized was rude, but just doing stuff like that kind of helped, you know. Someone said great travel content, not to be in your business, but can you give some tips on how you can afford international travel? The reason I'm asking is because it's my dream to travel abroad, but I'm not sure how to save and budget. I really appreciate it. So getting down to the budgeting, y'all, one tip, and this is a controversial tip, and I want to be very clear. If you are somebody who struggles with personal finance, if you're somebody who struggles with debt payment, don't do this. But me, I have a credit card. Not me telling all my business, but anyway, I have a United Travel card, y'all, and I use that credit card. I've had that credit card since I was in college. That credit card, I use it down, and for every dollar I spend, I get a point. So right now, I think I have like 60,000 points because I use this card so much, and I've had it for such a long time, y'all, like a very long time. That is one thing that I really am able to use to travel as far as like flights. Now, not all the time, but first of all, it's just having like points travel. But again, that is a slippery slope because it will lead you to credit card debt if you're swiping the card every month and you're not paying it off. I have been there. I have done that. I have had to be on the Dave Ramsey plan, and it's no fun. So if that's not something that you can do, then don't do that. But as far as budgeting cash, what I would say is just like every month, if you can, and this is one of those things like I'm very aware, guys, that like this part of this is gonna seem like it can be taken as like privilege or whatever. I'm not saying that. If this is not your reality, it's not your reality. But if it is something that is an option for you, then this is my tip: to open up a checking or savings account that is just designated to your traveling and try to save like whatever you're comfortable with saving towards traveling every month. Have a direct deposit it into that account so that every month you're building that fund to be able to travel. Also, being open to going places where the plane tickets are on sale. I went to Ireland a couple of years back, and I went to Ireland strictly because the ticket was $450 round trip, y'all. I didn't know that I wanted to go to Ireland, but I want to go everywhere. So I was like, okay, the ticket's $450, I'm going because it was so affordable. The same with Hawaii. The reason that I went to Hawaii is because the ticket was like three something, and I was like, oh, that's a great deal for Hawaii. I'm going to Hawaii. So for me, I'm always open to like going to a destination based on the affordability of the plane ticket, especially if it's somewhere that's like super expensive. Another thing is like obviously trying to find people that you can travel with. Which is hard. It's not easy doing that. And I'm very blessed to have a really good network, a good group of girlfriends that, you know, we are able to travel together and get along well. But having people that you can travel with because you're able to split accommodations, and that helps so much. Like just being able to have a hotel room is a game changer. But basically, I save money every month for it. I'm very open to like going places that are on the budget travel scene. Also, going in the off season, which I briefly mentioned, I'm not opposed to going to Hawaii in November. I don't care. I'm there, baby. And it's low key nicer because it's not as crowded. Now, some places stuff like closes, and that's a different discussion. But like, I don't mind going somewhere in the middle of March, or March is probably not off season, but like, you know, being open to that is going to help you. Those are my tips. Question is, what apps do you need apart from Google Translate? So the apps that I used in Europe, they have like some different apps. They have Uber, but they also have an app called Bolt and also an app called Free Now. Those two apps were great. In Amsterdam, Amsterdam does have a public transit app, which I loved because you could buy your bus ticket on the app that morning and you didn't have to go through the whole hassle. I don't know what it is. Something is so humiliating about having to figure out how to use a subway machine or a bus ticket machine. And I think it's because I live in Houston and we just have terrible public transit. So I'm just not used to it. So it's already something I don't do like every day or every month, like at all. I literally will only ride the bus or like a subway when I'm traveling. And so it's just like, it can feel so humiliating. So I loved that Amsterdam had an app for that. But those would be my main things. Also, TripAdvisor, having TripAdvisor on your phone so that you can look at reviews. And then Google Maps, y'all. I use Google Maps to walk through the city. I don't use Apple Maps. I feel like Google Maps is better. And that just helped us, like, me. I keep saying us. Helped me navigate how to get from point A to point B. So those will be the apps. Google Maps, TripAdvisor, and then, like, an additional app beyond Uber just in case the country that you're in does not have Uber. And tips on interacting with the locals. This is a tricky one, y'all, because to keep it 100, the locals don't really be like, in my perspective, they're like where you're at, but they kind of like over tourists, especially places in Europe. Like going to Paris, the way we were on our tour and this woman started yelling at our tour guide because he was using a microphone and it had recently become illegal. Like they're kind of over it, because keep in mind, if you live somewhere where like there's constant tourists, you know, it's like, oh, this is annoying. So the main thing is just like always being very respectful, being very kind, like understanding the like culturally things are different and adjusting to that, being polite. I think, you know, I'm fortunate that I have like quote unquote Southern hospitality because I'm born and raised in the South. So just like learning like, okay, be polite, don't do too much, you know, that's pretty much it. I think as I travel more places, like further away and stuff like that, I'll have better tips. But right now, most of the places I've been have been like very westernized anyway. So I can't speak to like, super strong cultural differences, if that makes sense. And I think that's where like that really comes into play. Like, I don't know if y'all saw about the lady who's in Dubai jail, right? Or not, I don't even know if she's in jail, but they took her passport because she yelled at a rental car guy. Like, that's the stuff where it's like, no, watch your mouth, watch how you behave. But where I've been, it's like, oh, whatever. Was I ever scared of a situation or area? Yes. And it's actually crazy, y'all, because I didn't even vlog this, but I came home through London. So I spent a day in London and y'all ended up in an area that was just very, very sketch. And at first I was scared. When my Uber dropped me off, I was gonna be like, babes, let's keep riding. We'll find another hotel. But I was like, whatever. I booked this hotel. I was just so ready to get home at that point. I didn't even like care. I was like, I'm just going to sleep here. But I ended up just like pretty much looking on Google Maps, getting the vibe of the area even more once I got settled. And I still ended up taking myself out to dinner. So I was fine. But I was definitely a little nervous in London. But beyond that, no, not really. I feel like even in Afro Nation, it's crazy because I was with my friend. Y'all, like one night I wanted to go home early. So I just left. I was like, girl, I'm going home early. And I just left and got an Uber by myself. It was like 2 a.m. I think it's just like practicing the same safety that you practice at home. Like, you feel me? Like sharing your location, sharing the ride with a friend, making sure you're being observant, not being in your phone like this. And that can be tricky when you're traveling, obviously, because you're trying to look at Google Maps. But don't be in your phone. You know, make sure you're looking around. You feel me? If anybody comes up to you trying to chit chat, shut that shit down. Like, and not even on some like rude stuff, but like in Paris, that happened a lot where like people would try to come up and like start a conversation and you just don't know what their intentions are. And not on like friendly stuff. It's like, okay, one girl was trying to give us roses at the table and it's like, no, we're good. You know what I mean? So just being aware and like not trying your best to be cautious. Let's start a travel group. I would love that, y'all. I'm not the best for that, but maybe. Let me post consistently for the next 6 months on YouTube, and then maybe for 2024, that'll be a big announcement. But right now, I'm trying to just be consistent with this. I love y'all though, and I think that would be so fun to do like a trip. Okay, and this is something I wanted to answer to, because this is a good question. I probably should have started with this. Someone was like, I thought you traveled with a friend, or was a portion solo and a portion accompanied. So for my Europe trip, y'all, a week was with a friend and a week was by myself. The reason that a week was with a friend was because obviously we went to Afro Nation together and then we went to Paris together. But I did Lisbon by myself and I did Amsterdam by myself and I did London by myself. So it was half and half, which was a great balance. And I really enjoyed that. How did I find the WhatsApp travel group? Okay, that is a good question, y'all. I'm going to list some travel groups. I'm also going to list a TikTok of this girl who she also has traveled with the travel group. But my friend Chizzy, she's in these travel groups and she told me about it. So really I get to like tag along with her. And that's how it kind of happened for the Afro Nation thing. But I will list some of them in the description box for y'all. And then the last question was budget. Average spend daily on food, transportation, activities. Okay, this is a great question, y'all. And I'm going to keep it real. Me, when I go on vacation, baby, I'm for enjoyment. If I have the budget too tight, I'm not going because I want to be able to spend my money how I want to spend it. I want to be able to have a good time. Like, I work my ass off. You feel me? Like, I work my ass off. I very much so deserve to enjoy myself on vacation. So, I typically don't give myself a budget. Now, obviously, I know what I can afford, if you get what I'm saying. I actually did some numbers for y'all. So for food, I would say like every day I budget $100. That's excessive. That's excessive. But again, it's because like if there's a trendy restaurant where the pasta's $30, I'm going for dinner. You feel me? But then for lunch, I might do something more affordable. And for breakfast, I might do something more affordable or whatever. So that's one thing I would say. For activities, I typically don't end up spending too much on activities because I'll do a free walking tour. And then from that, I'll like kind of do like one or two things, but I'm more of like a sightseer, if that makes sense. So for that, I would say probably budget like $200. But yeah, I spend probably 100 a day on food, probably like 200 to 300 on probably like 200 on activities, maybe less though. And then for the hotels, my max for a hotel by myself is $250 a night in Europe. That's like kind of what I tell myself, like $250 is as high as I'll go. And that's going to get you a very nice hotel typically. Transportation, I Ubered. So it just ranges, but either Uber, bus, or subway. And that's very affordable. I think you can get away with doing like $50 your whole, like $50 for like 2 or 3 days of traveling, honestly. Like the transportation is not the expensive part. For me, it's food. That's what gets me. And did I ever get bored? Yes, of course. Sometimes. But this trip, 2 weeks, it wasn't long enough to get bored. And since I was only by myself a week, and then I met that girl, Anna, and then like I was going from place to place, it was like not really. I didn't really have the chance to get bored. If anything, a bitch was tired. I didn't just sit down and take a break. That was the main thing. But no, I wasn't like super bored so the financial aspect is a big topic. And the best thing I can say, guys, is to just save. Another thing too is like, please keep in mind that people, especially nowadays, really poo on domestic travel. And I don't get why, y'all. I have seen some insane places, especially coming from Texas. Like going somewhere like Portland was mind blowing to me. Going somewhere like New York, mind blowing to me. So there's a lot of places that like you can go that are domestic, that are a little bit more affordable flights, that are still amazing experiences. You don't have to always be international. Me personally, I want to see all 50 states. That's like a big goal of mine, and I'm like trying to check them off. So yeah, don't be afraid of domestic travel. That does make it a little bit affordable. Also, don't be afraid to take a trip with like somebody new. Now, for example, when I went to Ireland, y'all, literally the ticket was on sale. I texted a coworker. Me and her had just started like being cool probably like 2 weeks before this. And I was like, hey girl, tickets are on sale to Ireland. Would you want to go with me? And she was like, yeah, we bought them tickets that night. Me and her had barely knew each other, child. We ended up going to Ireland and London together for like a week and a half. It ended up being a great trip. Me and her are still good friends now. I think the thing is just like not having too much of an ego, being able to be a team player and stuff like that. But yeah, that's how I personally, I'm rambling now. Give me a second. But yeah, that would just be one of my tips. Like, don't be afraid to kind of like put yourself out there, try a travel group, tag along on a trip sometimes. The main thing too is just like learning that like, okay, you have to be a team player. But yeah, y'all, those are all my tips and tricks for right now. The main one is if you want to go on a trip, start planning it in advance. Budget your money, honey. Make sure you have spending money, and then just make sure that you are going somewhere that you feel comfortable for your first solo trip. I hope this video was helpful, y'all, and I hope that I answered all of your questions. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up. Love y'all. I will see y'all on... So yeah, y'all, I hope that y'all enjoyed this video and that I was able to answer all of your questions. If you have any more, feel free to DM me on Instagram or whatever, and I will make sure to answer. Also, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, y'all, and give this video a thumbs up. I will see y'all on Sunday for our weekly vlog. Toodles!